Hey guys, Hup here. This isn't a scripted video or really gonna have any editing towards it. This is a kind of spur of the moment video that I wanted to make and one that I honestly didn't expect to make because we lost a legend today. We lost one of the great comic book creators, and looking at his resume, he seemed to not make a lot, but what he brought and made was very important. We can't ignore it. And the comic book legend that died today was none other than Steve Ditko. And to any Spider-Man and Doctor Strange fan, you know who he is. He is responsible for having a huge hand in the creation of those characters. And being a big Spider-Man fan my entire life, it seems, this news hit me hard, and I just learned of it, and I was kind of taken aback by by how sudden this was. I know the man was old. He just turned 90 recently, and he kind of passed away. Just looking at the Hollywood Reporter article right now, it says that he died on June 29th, and he is believed to have died 2 days earlier. I'm surprised no one reported the news sooner on this, but here we are. Steve Ditko, co-creator of Spider-Man, and the creator of Doctor Strange. He's no longer with us. Steve Ditko, as I mentioned, played a major role in the creation of Spider-Man, and we all know who he is as a character. And Steve Ditko, like a lot of people like to give Stan Lee credit for the creation of Spider-Man, and there's a reason for that. Lee wrote a lot of the early year stories. He, I think, came up with the idea of the character, but Steve Ditko was the one responsible for the design of the costume, and it's kind of unique because a lot of the Marvel heroes were designed by Jack Kirby, like by Jack Kirby, like Captain America, Black Panther, Hulk, Iron Man, Thor. Spider-Man wasn't designed by Jack Kirby. I mean, Jack Kirby had designs for the character, but they ended up going with Steve Ditko's run on his costume, and that's stuck ever since. The costumes changed a bit. The spider logo has changed. Sometimes the eyes have gone through several iterations, but the main costume has rarely changed and is a very iconic look. I can't imagine Spider-Man with a default of any other default regular costume other than the traditional red and blue suit. And whether that's he made it or it's a suit that was handed down to him, it's still such an iconic look. And I'm struggling to really think of words to say. The original run on Amazing Spider-Man, the Ditko ran from issues 1 to 38. I like to view it as a blueprint run. A lot of Spider-Man fans hold it in high regard. It is a good run. Don't get me wrong here, but it's aged noticeably, not in a bad way, of course. But other writers and artists like John Romita Sr. and Jerry Conway, Roger Stern, J.M. DeMatteis, J. Michael Straczynski. Those guys would later go on to do bigger and even better things than what the original Lee Ditko run did. But the original Lee Ditko run established a lot, not just for Spider-Man, and because they brought a lot for Spider-Man. They brought what kind of stories you had to tell with the character. They brought a lot of his rogues gallery, the Green Goblin, Doctor Octopus, the Lizard, the formation of the Sinister Six, and of course the magnum opus of the Lee Ditko run, If This Be My Destiny, aka the story arc where Peter is trapped under a huge sheet of metal and he needs to get out. He needs to find the strength in himself to go on and lift the rubble. And if that sounds familiar, that's because that moment was in Spider-Man: Homecoming towards the end of that movie, and that it was done amazingly well in that movie. and that's the moment that defines Spider-Man to a lot of people outside of his origin story, of course. And not Lee, Ditko drew a lot of those early issues, and looking back on them, they're very rough. They're not bad art. Like for '60s artwork, it's pretty good, but there's some kind of really weird off-model shenanigans sometimes. Other artists like John Romita Sr. And all the other artists later on would do the character better, but Ditko was responsible for giving Peter Parker's signature look. And there is some charm to that old artwork. It has this very we're trying to tell stories about this breakout character, rough art be damned kind of way, and it has that charm to it that I feel like a lot of things can't match in terms of just early artwork being charming. There's just something really funny about the old Ditko art in a good way, of course. And Ditko was also the one responsible for the creation of Doctor Strange, and Doctor Strange is another popular character at the moment because of his solo movie in the MCU and his appearance in Infinity War. Doctor Strange has always been kind of a niche character in a lot of ways. Doctor Strange is one of my favorite uh, partners for Spider-Man as far as team ups are concerned. And well, yeah, that's a lot of his Marvel work. The thing that made Ditko leave on Amazing Spider-Man, I think, is famously on the review of who the Green Goblin was in Amazing Spider-Man number 39, which was when John Romita Sr. Became artist of that book. Because originally, I think Ditko wanted the Green Goblin to be a faceless, not a faceless man, but someone we didn't know, like a new guy. But between, but there was disagreements between him and Stan Lee. I think Lee wanted him to be Norman Osborn, who we all know is the Green Goblin, and Ditko just kind of left. He returned to Marvel, of course, because he worked for DC and other companies for a while. But interestingly enough, I didn't notice until looking at this article, The Hollywood Reporter, he was responsible for the creation of Squirrel Girl, who is often referred to as a joke character in the Marvel Universe, and that's very interesting. I didn't know that. But he was one of the things that you can't really talk about Steve Ditko without mentioning this, his Ayn Rand objectivist philosophy. And, this resulted in a lot of characters like The Question, who is a very popular DC Comics. I don't know what kind of tier The Question is. I want to say B list because I see a lot of people talk about The Question in high regard. And I don't believe in Ayn Rand philosophies, and that's something that a lot of the Zack Snyder fans of of Man of Steel and Batman v Superman love to tout a lot. But I'm not going to get into that. That's just something that I wanted to bring up because this is supposed to be kind of a short little Steve Ditko memorial video. And the last thing I want to mention before I close this off is that Steve Ditko really wasn't a fan of interviews. He would often, in this article, refers to him as the J.D. Cylinder of comics. That guy who's famous for Catcher in the Rye. Steve Ditko rarely spoke. He declined nearly every interview request, and it was surprising that he never came out in public towards the every Spider-Man movie, from the Raimi trilogy to the Amazing Spider-Man movies to even the MCU Spider-Man, and even Doctor Strange. He was never in those publicity. Like, you think they would do that, but he would go out there, but no. He was very private about his life, and says here the director of Doctor Strange, Scott Derrickson, says that he hopes Ditko watched the movie, and I hope Ditko watched all the movies on his creations. Even some of the lesser ones like Spider-Man 3. I hope he watched that as well. And that's kind of where I want to end this little video on. I know it's very unprofessional, spur of the moment kind of video, but I felt like I needed to make this because I'm such a big Spider-Man fan, and to lose such an integral person who was involved with this character just really hit a major chord with me. I felt like this needed to be made. I needed to say my stance on Steve Ditko. The man's an absolute legend in the comic book industry. Without his work, we wouldn't have gotten the iconic look of Spider-Man. I don't know what he would have looked like today if it weren't for Ditko. We wouldn't have gotten Doctor Strange, and those are very important characters that he made. He may have not contributed a lot, like he made like a few characters, but the characters that he made are very popular fan favorites. Spider-Man in particular is one of the most famous superheroes of all time, and I hope that he went out. I hope he had a peaceful life during those times where he was not in the public eye. I hope he lived a good life. I hope that he people remember him for his creations and for what he brought to the table. And yeah. So this has been Hub. See you guys later. Rest in peace, Steve Ditko.